Hello, everyone. I'm Vanessa Goodwin of Key Performance Ideas, and I'd like to welcome you today to our webinar, Cloud Migration and Latest Enhancements, presented today by Scott Costello. Scott Costello, a CPA and certified Oracle Hyperion Planning, Essbase, and Hyperion Financial Management Consultant, is a recognized leader and frequent speaker at national and virtual events to foster best practices in enterprise performance management and business intelligence. Scott has more than 17 years of consulting management experience and has guided customers across a variety of industries in their implementation of successful planning, forecasting, close, and reporting solutions. Thank you for joining us today, Scott.
Thank you, Anissa, and thank you for the introduction. All right, so this presentation today is really to focus in on a few things. I know there's a good variety of folks on the phone who are existing Hyperion users, maybe some that are considering it, as well as some that use PBCS or Planning Budgeting Cloud Service. What we like to do at KPI every quarter is spend some time going through some of the new features as they continue to enhance the technology and enhance some of the feature functions. So I'll be touching on some of those as well. For the agenda today, we're really going to talk about the cloud itself and what we mean when we use some of these acronyms and how folks are getting there. We'll talk about some of the successes and use cases that we've seen already. And then we'll get into the technology itself so you can see it firsthand. And I'm going to focus in on some of the enhancements that have recently come out, which will be a little different than some of the on-premise stuff. At the end, we'll leave some time for questions. We'll be doing that via the chat. So if you have any questions at the end or along the presentation, feel free to type those in and we will address them. All right, so just a quick background on Key Performance Ideas. We are a full-service EPM partner of Oracle's, a gold partner. We are specialized in the Oracle Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service, which I'll be talking about today. But we do the entire suite of technology under the Hyperion or Oracle EPM footprint. So all of this, including some of the BI pieces as well. The way that my organization is run is really kind of a multi-tier. We really start with the cloud and the technology itself, the upper left. And then, you know, with that technology, we can take it using our quick start, rapid implementation, or migration solution called Plantastic and get you from, you know, either your spreadsheet process today or your on-premise process today into the cloud solution. Complementing all that, we also have what we call our SMART program. So for any organization who needs a little bit of more support with their administration, we have dedicated folks with years of Hyperion experience in our SMART team that are there to help. So let's talk a little bit about the cloud and how to get there. I'm specifically going to be talking about Oracle Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service, or PBCS is the acronym. So it is a true SaaS deployment. So when I talk about SaaS, that's software as a service. That's the true model that they use. What's really great about this technology is they didn't try to rewrite Hyperion when they moved it in the cloud, when they've rebranded it with this cloud service acronym. They've just taken planning, they've taken Essbase, and they've licensed it differently. So just kind of moved it over into their data centers with an additional layer of security, but it's the same underlying database, the same great reporting, Excel interactions that you're used to with the technology. But they have optimized it specifically for Oracle's public cloud environment. So it's Oracle's data centers that this sits on, managed and operated by Oracle, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So these numbers are a bit dated already, but the technology or the new way of licensing this has come out almost 2 years ago now. Several hundred customers have already made the migration or net new. 50,000 plus end users. I know that number grows every day. we're seeing this really applied across different industries. So no particular industry is kind of taking it versus another one. And as I mentioned, it's built on this technology that's been around forever. You know, Essbase is still the underlying database. Hyperion Planning is still the application that's sitting on top of it. And then, of course, you always have the 24/7 support, not just on the, you know, some of the functional pieces, but now you'll have it on the technical side as well with the Oracle team. We've seen a lot of successes here at KPI with folks moving into the cloud environment, and I wanted to just share a couple of those successes. You can see these out on our web pages as well. We have plenty of white papers and formal presentations, but this is just an example of some of the clients that we're either currently working with or live customers that have already made that move into the cloud using Oracle PBCS. So very good stories. I'll share a couple of these successes with you. Diono being one of the first that we've worked with. They're not only using this solution to replace all their financial planning that they were doing in Excel, but they're using it for sales forecasting as well. So a true CRM solution built in this technology. And we're starting to see that more and more because it's so easy to deploy, because it can be turned on, you know, in a 24-hour period and you have an application up and running. We're seeing an expansion of the traditional use of Hyperion Planning. SunSource, an organization here in Chicago, actually replaced Hyperion Enterprise, which they were using for mainly their monthly reporting of their financials, and were doing all their budget in Excel. They use PBCS now for both their monthly reporting as well as their budgeting. Communications Test and Design, they, based out of Philly, they actually use this for daily forecasting, P&L of all their branches and divisions. There's a great video success story of these guys on our website. Competitor group in San Diego, you know, event planning is how they're using this. So they do all the different marathons and publish magazines. So every time they hold an event like a rock and roll marathon, they'll actually use PBCS to plan for all the contributions, the cost, et cetera. So again, we're seeing kind of a skew a little bit of the traditional operational planning of expenses where people are branching out and taking advantage of this cloud technology to go even further in the business. Even financial institutions like Western Alliance Bank, they use this for financial planning and some M&A analysis as they continue to grow and acquire organizations. Fusion Financial, some of you may have heard of this. This is Oracle's new cloud-based ERP solution. And organizations like YMCA out of Silicon Valley and IEHP are both starting to set up the integration with the Fusion Financials where there's a little more direct integration between the two. PKC Group, we're actually just wrapping them up right now. They're doing their financial consolidations and reporting. We actually replaced HFM with PBCS here, again, because of some of the simplicity of how they were doing their general close. And another wrap-up that we just did recently was a Connecture of Wisconsin where they do their workforce planning every quarter. And they get very granular down to the individual employee and bonuses. So we built basically workforce planning within the cloud solution. So just wanted to give you guys a sense that this isn't new. This isn't something different than how people are used to doing things. All of these organizations really went to the cloud because of the economics of it, because of the administration of it, and because of the Hyperion name that they knew. So we always like to solicit why do people move to the cloud, and we asked all those folks that that I just presented here a minute ago, what were the main reasons why they decided to go into a cloud environment. Here are some of the quick bullet points that we've heard. One was the IT involvement. Having an organization or not having to worry about backups and patches and upgrades or anything like that, not having to invest in the hardware, that was a big benefit for folks to actually go with the solution in the beginning. So none of that hardware investment, so you're not amortizing the software, depreciating the hardware. It's purely a subscription-based. What's also nice is as your business grows, with Hyperion, you can obviously get a very small server to start and then potentially need to expand that server as your business grows and you need that processing speed. Oracle data centers are using all the Sun servers, are using some of the most powerful EXA-type analytics and servers that are specifically tuned, again, for the Hyperion technology. There's been some real quick ROI with our implementations as well, mainly because you're eliminating a step of having to procure hardware, install software, test it, check it. All those pieces go away. With the cloud, you literally, once you sign the contract, they have the instance up and running for you in 24 hours. And people obviously love Hyperion. A lot of the folks that decided to use this technology knew the Hyperion name, knew that it was the same technology, just a different way of licensing it. And other organizations, a big reason was their current solution was just outdated. We kind of live in a world now where, all our apps get updates on a regular basis. Browsers get updated on a regular basis. Office versions, you name it. Things move very, very quickly, and they needed to be on something that was supported. They needed to be something that stays up to date, and that's what the cloud does. It'll stay up to date with those other technologies. So if you are an existing Hyperion client or user and you're considering, is this the right thing for me? Some things to keep in mind, again, around having this whole back-end support. One of the keys, obviously, is always being on the latest patches and versions. As you know, anyone who's been through an upgrade of any technology, there's a cost involved. Usually you get a partner involved and there's an implementation cost. That goes away. Services going down, that's quite possible in different environments. Services can go down as you're kind of stuck on one server, usually for the whole technology, and you need someone to restart those services. There's failovers in place when they're in the cloud data center where that doesn't occur. They do automatic backups of your application, so you can grab yesterday's backup at any time. You can even build a process where you can get backups, daily. Never go through the upgrade process again, as I mentioned. Simplifying the data integration and mapping. It comes built in with some of the data management solutions like FDM, so it makes it easier. It's now all mobile ready, so you can use your phone or tablet to access the application. And you always have the cloud support team available, so having your own IT team basically available for support if anything goes wrong. So these are things to consider. If you're thinking about migrating, some of the big benefits, some of the things that we're seeing are, those are the whys, and these are things to really think about if you want to make that jump. The big piece, obviously, is that administration, and I did want to just highlight that a little bit more. From a patching perspective, what they do is they'll put out patches on an as-needed basis. For usually the second Thursday of every month, they'll actually put a small dot release out there for that month's updates. If there's anything that happens to occur beforehand, they'll put another little patch out there. They usually will update the test environment and then give a couple weeks for you to play with it before moving to the production environment. Major upgrades, they give you more of a window, like 4-month window for deciding when you want the upgrade to occur. As I mentioned, backups. You can take backups of any piece of the application. You can grab snapshots of the application. They will do daily backups for you. So if there was a issue, you can always revert back to yesterday's backup. And most importantly, you can do that as an administrator of the system, as a financial administrator of the system. You don't need IT to actually go grab those files or anything. It's available right in the application for you to go grab yourself. There is constant diagnostics, testing, performance, tuning that goes on. So they're always monitoring, checking to make sure that your servers have enough RAM, have enough processing speed for you. So that tuning, that diagnostics is always there. And it's just a constant monitoring. So You can imagine one of these cloud data centers where they have people just watching how the servers are operating, making sure they're operating at optimal performance. What's really neat about the cloud, something that I'm excited about is, I've been in this space for, as Anissa mentioned, for about 17 years now. I'm focused on the Hyperion technology. And every year, every couple of years, you would see these enhancements come out. Those of you that remember going from 7 to the 9 version and the 9 version to the 11 version, they really changed the user interface. They made some big changes in those jumps. But that was every 2-3 years. With the cloud, they're literally putting these new updates out every month. And some of the updates that we're seeing, are things that we were hoping for years. And because of this deployment method, it's pretty easy to get out there. They'll put these enhancements into the cloud first before that gets caught up to the on-premise solution. So when I get into a demo of the software, you'll see some of these enhancements, but I wanted to just touch upon some of them first. So again, these are the new features that are on the cloud. You will eventually see these in the on-premise world, but they're exclusively in the cloud now. A couple of them, the embedded predictive planning. I'm actually going to go through a little demo of that so you can see it firsthand. But it helps with truly trending information using logarithmic trending models to apply curves and to apply seasonality that you'll see in the business. But it's done at the click of a button. FDM or data management is built into the application as well. So as opposed to having to purchase that separately, you now have a finance owned and operated purpose-built data integration tool and mapping solution. Smart forms, I'll show a presentation of this, but you can actually put Excel formulas now into a form and save it in Excel, and it'll push it right back to the web. So really cool stuff. There's a simplified interface, and I'll be showing mainly the simplified interface, but you have both options of the traditional one for those of you that are existing Hyperion users. And then there's the simplified interface, which is available over the web, but it's also available on mobile devices too. And because of that, they now support things like Chrome and Safari for browsers. They've included notifications recently, so when a business rule gets complete, you can have an email sent to you saying, this calculation just run or it's complete. You can submit data without refreshing it. So those of you who currently use Smart View, this is a big one. A lot of times when you submit data, it would say you have to refresh first before you submit. This new feature says you can submit data without the refresh. One that we've been working on quite a bit lately is something called Smart Push. It's a move to what's called aggregate storage or ASO cubes. And to simplify what that really means is if you have an existing application or you're considering this technology, Smart Push, what it does is it basically moves the data as it's getting entered into a cube that will aggregate instantly. So if you're going through any process today where you're waiting for long aggregation times, the Smart Push actually eliminates those aggregations because you can have people enter data and ag instantly at the same time. They've created some sandboxing for end users too, and think of it as a versioning option for end users to kind of play with their data a little bit more. There's a job scheduler built directly through the web, so instead of having to put any sort of scripts together or anything like that, you can now schedule different things to occur directly through the user interface. Valid data combinations. This has again been something that I know I've been hoping to see for over a decade, but this, and I'll show this here in a second, this allows you to specify specifically what access different dimensions should have. So if you say a specific entity only can see these accounts, you can specify that through a valid data combination. And then single sign-on support. So this is something recent as well in the past few months, being able to do single sign-on directly with the solution. let me jump out into the application here just so everyone can see it. As I mentioned, we're going to go into the simplified interface, which is, again, just another option for accessing it. But this would be the interface if you were on a mobile device, you want to start playing with it, or if you wanted to use different browsers like Chrome and Safari, as well as Internet Explorer and Firefox. Some new things that are actually available with this is they've embedded some dashboards here, so you can very easily start doing some, very graphical analytics. Again, think of this from, an executive standpoint, a management standpoint, being able to come into, your mobile device, click on a form, click on a dashboard, be able to click on a button and play with it and change it a little bit. So if you wanted to move from, one department to another department, I can just click and choose, and I can see my data move with it. So trend information to see how are my actuals compared to my budget. If I want to bump out any one of these particular dashboards, I can just click on a button. Oops. And it'll pop it out. Sorry, I think I was in there a little bit too long. This is also our marketing technique so that you can remember our name as I sign in a couple times here. All right, let me go back to that simplified interface. So again, those are some of the dashboards that you can do. It's part of the application now. You can build and choose your own. It's very easy to turn, what looks like a normal report or form into a dashboard. All the different type of chart types that you have in Excel are available in here as well. From the console is where I can actually see a lot of different pieces of the application. I can look at, how is my application built in terms of different tasks I have, the different rules I have, the approval hierarchies. But I can also come in, and this is where I can start to schedule jobs. So a job can be anything from a rule to a refresh to importing of data or metadata, basically anything here on the left-hand side. So traditionally with Hyperion in the on-premise world, if you wanted to create a sort of scheduled process, you'd have to create a script of some sort and set that up with IT in the background on some server, and then it would run at a point in time. What we're trying to do is take the scripts and all those pieces and really put it into the user interface. So again, if I wanted to run a rule at a certain date and time, I can just come in here and actually give this job a name, run a rule. And then it's just, a series of steps to say, okay, which rule do you actually want to run? You select the rule, click finish, and I've just scheduled a job, basically. So it's that simple to kind of go through this process of scheduling jobs. And again, the types of jobs you can schedule currently are running business rules, loading data, loading the metadata, so your chart of accounts, your entities, those sorts of things, exporting the data if you move some of the budget information to another system, like your general ledger, even refresh the database, or map different plan types together. So again, all that's available directly in the UI now, which is really nice. Another feature that I talked a little bit about is valid intersections. So what a valid intersection is, again, is instead of using security of an application to say, I only want this particular entity to see these accounts or these products or these departments, I can go in and actually specify all that through the valid intersection. So when Chile opens up a form, they're only going to have access to the accounts that I have labeled here. It avoids having to do all that additional security. And for folks who are using things like a workforce planning application, you can pick and choose now which things you want to specify for the different plan types. So it makes it real easy. If I want to add another rule, I just click on Add Rule. If I want to add more dimensions to these rules, I just click on the dimension, and I can add other pieces to it as well. So this entity can only see these departments for these accounts. and then just in any form, in Smart View, reports, only this intersection is valid for them when they pull those pieces up. So again, it just makes things a little easier. But everything else really looks the same in terms of all your different forms and composite forms. For me to open up, all my different types of forms, it really operates pretty similar. Both whether it's through the simplified interface or the traditional one, you still have both options. But you have some new features here too, and I'm going to talk about these in just a second. We call these smart forms, and if I go to kind of my root here, I'm going to build you a smart form so you can see what it looks like, but I wanted to start with kind of a blank screen here. There's an old one existing, but we're going to create a new one. So with that, let me actually jump into Smart View. And before I get into creating that smart form, I wanted to show one other feature first. I mentioned this in the beginning. Again, there's a lot of things that are embedded within this, the dashboards, the mobile capability, FDM or data management. Predictive planning is another piece that's built into this. So predictive planning, again, uses some technology called crystal ball, where it predicts what your numbers are going to be given historical information. So in this example, as you can see, I have 2 years of historical data. I have my FY14, FY15, here's all my actuals that came in. And I want to go ahead now and actually load in my budget information, but I want to take this 24 months of information and apply a trend. I can make adjustments after the fact, but it really gives you a good starting point. And again, no rules have to be created, no calculations have to be created in order to do this. I literally just click a button to say predict, and I'm given an option here of how I want to predict things. So I'm just going to say, let's predict. It's going to scan your current form. So just based on the fact that it sees 2 years of actuals and these specific expenses, it sees 6, it's going to prompt you with some confirmation of information. And I can change that too. So it sees 6 members that are writable, starting with travel expenses. It sees that there's 2 years of historical data. And again, I can change any one of those. It assumes that I want to predict, because I put my cursor, starting with January 16, going for 12 months. So it reads the form, what's readable, what's writable, and it'll run the prediction for you. So now I just click run, and it says the prediction was successful. So after doing the prediction, what it does is it gives you some information. It hasn't applied it yet because I haven't pasted those results in yet, but I will in a second. This is where it shows you for each type of account, what is your minimum, your mean, your maximum, standard deviation, seasonality. It gives you accuracy ranges. It gives you different methodologies for trending that information. And it does it for every single account that's on the screen. So rent is a little more stable, so I don't expect any volatility with that. I can see the data before I apply it, so it shows me here's the information we took from, and then what the system predicted to, with a best case, worst case, and kind of a mean in between. And I can pick and choose and say, I think I'll take the best case for this, or let's take the worst case for this. It even charts the information, and so you can see kind of the trend. If I did something that's a little more consistent, like rent, I would see very little variation. But if I'm happy with some of that data and some of the results, again, I can just say, let's paste all members. It's going to ask, where do you want to paste it to? I'm going to paste it to the budgeting. I can pick, again, between the best case, worst case, or just the general prediction. I'm going to say the general prediction. And there's my values. So that was literally just based on how the form was set up, taking 2 years of actuals, click a button to predict, review my results, and then paste those in. It's that simple. excuse me. If I'm happy with these results, I can send it right back into planning like I'm used to doing. If I wanted to apply different seasonality or other things, I can apply that to it as well, just like you traditionally would when you make updates on a form. So again, this is a solution that comes with PBCS, Predictive Planning. It is available in on-premise as well, but something that we're starting to see organizations take more and more interest in, having those forecasts and their budget predicted for them using some very sophisticated methodologies. I mentioned this early on, but I wanted to just kind of highlight it as well. This option on the submit is really kind of a lifesaver for those of you, again, who use Smart View and are familiar with having to create a report and then refresh the report before you submit data. You don't have to do that anymore. There is an option that's a submit without a refresh, which is really nice. But I wanted to show you, too, how I could take something that is an ad hoc report or a form and make that into a dynamic form. So if I just use some basic Excel functionality and I do a refresh here, and let's say I want to make a form that's specific to my budget, I already have some data in there for legal. These 4 accounts don't represent my total operating expenses, but it represents a subsection of it. I don't have it set up in the account hierarchy, a total for these 4 accounts, and I really don't want to mess with my chart of accounts hierarchy. But I do want a form that focuses just on these 4, and I want to be able to total this too. So with the Smart Form feature, which is really cool, I can go ahead and start to enter information on the fly and start using Excel formulas in here. So this is nothing new, right? I'm just using Excel formulas in Excel. But let's say I also wanted to do things like take an average, right? Again, I can use some Excel functions here and say, let's take the average. And I'll just specify these 6 months. So the only thing I have to do after I start making those calculation changes and formatting changes is I just click a button that says Save as a Smart View form. So I'll call this particular form the webinar form. I can give it a description. I can put it in a different path. I'm just going to put it in the root one. I can even submit formatting. So this is actually a really neat feature where I can start to bold my rows or bold columns or give things different fonts. I can change all that here in Excel, and it'll save it back over in the web or in the mobile device. So I click OK here. You'll see over on the right-hand side in my panel, it's showing me a new form called Webinar under my directory of forms. But if I go back out to the web now, and I refresh this view, I can see my new webinar form that was just created out there as well. If I click on it, what's really neat is it's going to keep all those pieces here. So remember that I'm summarizing down below and I'm taking an average over here. If I bump this up to 6,000, it's automatically going to aggregate those pieces for me. It's automatically going to change my average for me at the same time. So I'm taking, again, Excel functions, clicking a button to save it, and I've created a dynamic form, that's personalized just for me, but has those Excel formulas and functionalities that come across. So again, really neat. This is also where you can do some of that formatting in here too. There's a lot of different formatting options of how you bring the data in, any kind of color coding you want. But everything else is the same too in terms of your actions on the cells. So if I want to go ahead and do something more ad hoc, if If I want to save this as an actual form, if I want to do supporting detail or commentary or text, I can do all those pieces that I'm used to doing as well. Okay, so that's a quick run through again of some of the new features in this environment of Oracle PBCS or Planning and Budgeting Cloud Service. And that's what we really wanted to highlight today. You know, for those folks who are existing users of ours, clients of ours, thank you again, you know, for your support, and hopefully you saw some stuff that maybe you'll be able to take advantage of as they continue to upgrade and improve, you know, this technology in a variety of ways. For people who are existing Hyperion organizations that are considering the cloud, you know, there's a lot of different benefits to it. We offer a free assessment of your environment if you want us to come in for a couple days and tell you, hey, this is, you know, where we think it's going to work well, areas where, you know, you might want to be cautious of or other things. And for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, we have a lot of other demonstrations and webinars out there that you can see kind of a full run through of this technology.